This is the story of Moses and the burning bush, one of the most iconic accounts in the Bible that reveals God's power, purpose, and infinite patience. Stop scrolling. This is a message you don't want to miss. Picture this. We begin in the desert of Midian. Moses was living a quiet, humble life as a shepherd after fleeing Egypt, avoiding Pharaoh's wrath for killing an Egyptian guard. It seemed like his turbulent past was behind him. But little did Moses know, his greatest calling was yet to come. One day, as Moses tended his sheep near Mount Horeb, the mountain of God, something extraordinary happened. He noticed a bush that was engulfed in flames. But the strangest part? The bush was not being consumed by the fire. Intrigued and perhaps a bit cautious, Moses walked closer. Suddenly, a divine voice broke through the stillness. "Moses! Moses!" called a voice from within the bush. Startled, Moses replied, "Here I am." And then he was instructed, "Do not come any closer. Take off your sandals, for the place where you are standing is holy ground." Imagine being Moses in that moment, standing in awe and fear, realizing he was speaking to God Almighty. God identified himself as the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. As Moses listened, his heart likely raced with a mix of emotions: awe, fear, curiosity, and anticipation. God told Moses that he had seen the suffering of his people, the Israelites, who were enslaved in Egypt. "I have heard their cries and seen their misery," said God. "I have come down to rescue them from the hands of the Egyptians and to bring them to a land flowing with milk and honey." Then came the part that Moses didn't expect. God appointed him, the humble shepherd, a seemingly unworthy man, to lead the Israelites out of Egypt. But Moses hesitated. "Who am I," he asked, "that I should go to Pharaoh and bring the Israelites out of Egypt?" Think about it. Wouldn't you feel the same? Faced with such a monumental task, self-doubt consumed him. But God reassured him, saying, "I will be with you." Still, Moses was doubtful. He questioned, "Suppose they ask me who sent me. What should I tell them?" God declared, "I am who I am. Tell them I am has sent you." This profound statement echoed God's eternal, self-existing nature, a name above names, signifying his power and authority over all creation. But Moses still resisted. "What if they don't believe me?" he pleaded. Patiently, God provided Moses with signs of his power. He turned Moses' staff into a serpent and then back again, made his hand leprous and restored it, and promised that water taken from the Nile would turn into blood if poured on dry ground. And yet, Moses objected again, claiming, "I am not eloquent. I am slow of speech and tongue." God's reply? "Who gave human beings their mouths? Is it not I, the Lord?" Even after this assurance, Moses pleaded, "Please send someone else." Despite Moses' reluctance and self-doubt, God's patience never wavered. He appointed Aaron, Moses' brother, as his spokesperson and affirmed that Moses would not go alone. Together, they would carry out God's mission. This encounter at the burning bush teaches us powerful lessons. First, God often chooses the most unexpected and unlikely individuals for incredible tasks. Even if you feel inadequate, uncertain, or flawed, remember that God equips those he calls. Second, God's presence goes with his chosen ones. Despite our fears and weaknesses, his reassurance and power empower us to accomplish his will. And lastly, the burning bush reminds us that God speaks uniquely to each of us. He calls us to step out of our comfort zones, face our fears, and carry out his purpose. Let's challenge ourselves to reflect. Are we listening to God's voice? Are we willing to say yes, even when we feel uncertain or unprepared? Moses said, "Here I am," and despite his doubts, he ultimately obeyed, becoming one of the greatest leaders in biblical history. Will you take the same leap of faith? The story of Moses doesn't end here. But this defining moment marked the beginning of a journey that would change the course of history forever. And it all began with a bush that burned but was never consumed. So, what's your burning bush? What moments in your life could be God's way of calling you to do something extraordinary? If you found this story inspiring, share it with someone who needs some encouragement today. God's calling might be closer than we think. Don't forget to like, comment, and follow for more stories from the Bible.